Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules, and at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome to another edition of BOA The Revival. Really looking forward to tonight's show. I've actually already spent like 8 minutes chatting with tonight's guest, just chewing the fat and having a good time. And it's a first-time guest, which is kind of like unusual here, because usually we do the pre-chat that long. It's someone I've known for a long time. This is someone I'm just meeting tonight, which is stunning because he's from Maine and he's written a whole bunch of books about Maine and the general New England region. I'm stunned we haven't crossed paths at some event somewhere, but apparently we haven't. And so hopefully that'll change going. I know it'll change because we're going to be seeing each other this coming weekend at the International Cryptozoology big grand opening in Bangor. But by the time folks hear this, we'll have returned from there, so we won't belabor that point. Let me circle back around now. Our guest is Nomar Slevik. He is an author, researcher, and independent creator in numerous aspects of the paranormal, and he really is. He lives up to his billing there, folks. He's got a new book out. I always do this, even though the show's audio. I have it here in my hands. In the Pines, True Stories of Mystery, Mayhem, and Monsters in Maine. And what is really cool about the book and really cool about Nomar is, as I said, he's an independent creator in numerous aspects of the paranormal. The book has ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, crazy true crime stories, and just generally weird tales. So it's like all in there. So if you like the whole bouillabaisse of weird, it's called the paranormal chowder, it's in there in this book, In the Pines, and I highly recommend it. It's really a lot of fun with just tons and tons of stories. We're going to get into some here tonight on the show. He also has Haunted Pines, the podcast, and he's written a whole bunch of other books. You can find out more from him at allmylinks.com/Slevik, and that's Slevik. So with all that said, welcome to the show, Nomar. Thank you so much for coming on with All of America.
Thank you so much for having me. You're right. I can't believe we haven't come across each other yet, although I have cited you in some of my works, so that's always fun. And just recently, you had written an article for Coast to Coast about a location in Maine that did these cool little I voted stickers that had a Sasquatch on them, which they did for like no other reason than this is kind of cool. Maybe it'll draw people in. So I read your thing. I looked the dude up on the Facebook and sent him an email. I was like, yo, I'm Nomar. Here's what I do. Love to get my hands on some of those stickers. And he ended up sending me like 20 of them. And so I kept 6 and I gave 14 of them to the Cryptozoology Museum. So
nice. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. You're you're cursed now, because every time I write a Maine article like I do for our mutual friend Reverend Redbeard from Acadia After Dark, I send him anything that comes up in Maine. I'll send it his way too. Or I'll be like, hey, here's a weird thing you might not have seen yet. Check it out. So I'll kind of put you on my Maine mailing list.
Yeah, this is a requirement now. So thank you. I appreciate that.
With the first time guests, we always start out with the bio, the background. Who is Nomar Slevik? How'd you get mixed up in all this? And always kind of interesting to me is sort of like, how'd you get interested in this? And then how'd you kind of go from someone who's like, I have an interest in this to I'm going to put myself out there and become a part of all this. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, so that'll be it's definitely my origins, and I've told the story a lot, and it's a nice little story time, and I got to answer for the full thing here. So okay. We're going way back. We just discovered what our ages were, so I'm going way back to when I was like 4 years old. So that was a long ass time ago. And I've gone to bed, and a loud bang wakes me up. And my eyes are kind of darting around for an explanation. And to me, it's the middle of the night. I don't know if that's 9 p.m. or 3 a.m. I'm friggin' 4 years old, but I'm looking around for an explanation, and I start hearing these taps on my window. So I look over there, and then I see the sky light up, and I'm like, oh, thunder and lightning storm. Like thunder must have woken me up. So I kneel up in bed, and I'm watching this thunderstorm. And I lived at the tip of Maine. Like I lived right on the border of Canada at the time. And the St. John River basically ran in front of my house, and it was raging, right? And there's booms going on and lightning. And then after a moment, there was this really disturbing lightning bolt. Like if I were to ask you to draw one, you would draw this jagged yellow line.
Yeah.
And it was stuck in a cloud. And that's how my young mind perceived it, and that's how I remember it now. But it's this lightning bolt stuck in a cloud, and there's electricity coming off of it, and there's booms associated with it. And then I don't know what happens. I wake up the next morning. I go to the bathroom. I've forgotten all about this. Go to the bathroom. I'm walking from the bathroom back to my room, and I can see out my window, and the lightning bolt's still there.
Oh, weird.
Well, at that age, I knew that you saw lightning super quick, And so I ran downstairs to get my dad. I brought him all the way upstairs to show him the lightning bolt stuck in a cloud. And when we got up there, it was gone. And I was trying to explain about the rain and how I woke up and blah, blah, blah. And he was just doing the dad toddler thing, like patting me on the head. But I must have been really insistent because he had to kneel down, put his hands on my shoulders. And he's like, buddy, it didn't even rain last night. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm 4 going on 5, and the next shiny thing catches my attention, and I forget about it. A couple weeks later, I'm woken up again in the middle of the night, and it's my dad. And he brings me downstairs, and I see that my mom is putting my sister, dressing her up in her winter clothes. So it must have been winter. And then she starts doing the same thing to me. And then my dad scoops me up, and we all go outside. And I'm like, what are we doing? In my head. And I have my head tucked into my dad's chest because it's freezing. We lived in Fort Kent, the tip of Maine. And so we're on the frozen tundra of our front yard. And my dad keeps saying, look up. You got to look up, buddy. And so I finally do. And I look up, and I see this kaleidoscope of colors. And it's the Northern Lights.
Oh, wow.
It's the only time in my life I've ever seen them. It happened 3,000 times last year, and it was always too cloudy over here to see them. So that was the one time I remember it like it was yesterday. And so I think those two things happening so close to each other at such a young age created this core memory, and weird shit happens in the sky, and I should pay attention. And so that was kind of the catalyst for me to seek out strange stories. So when I'm pre-teens, I'm talking to my mom about, did anything ever strange happen to you? And she turned out lived in this haunted house growing up. And so I got all these stories from her, and I was craving more. So I'd ask my friends, I would ask teachers, so I was collecting these stories audibly. And sometimes I would write some of them down, if I thought they were really cool or whatever. Then I started watching Unsolved Mysteries, and the case of the Allagash 4 came on, and that was the first time I heard about it. And I'm like, oh my God, this stuff happens in Maine, the UFO stuff. I'm like, that's crazy. And so I was obsessed with all of that. My library had about 4 books on the UFO subject, and I took them out constantly, And I remember there were such slogs to get through. They read friggin' textbooks,
Yeah.
It was just looking for that nugget of the story, not all this pontification around it and all the bullshit. So, not to name names, but so I don't have to do that. So time goes on, and I'm a writer by nature. I was always writing, and I still do to this day, write horror fiction, flash fiction, but I'm also a songwriter. And having that background and collecting these stories, I got this hair across my ass in my 20s, where I was looking at my collection of paranormal books, and I'm like, there's nothing dedicated to UFOs in Maine. There's 1,000 ghost books. There's a few cryptid books, but they're not Maine based, but there's Maine stories in them. And so I was like, I'm going to write that book about UFOs in Maine. And so I had a starting point with my big collection of stories. And then it just kind of started to snowball, where I was trying to find newspaper clippings, trying to talk to people. And that turned into me learning how to research. So I was learning it all on the fly, and, I'm still learning to this day. But that was the catalyst that snowballed till finally in my 30s, because that book took me like 6 years to write, because I'm an idiot and I didn't know what I'm doing, So
Well, it's your first book. Yeah.
So it took me forever to write, and then I couldn't find a publisher, and then like last minute, like it was a movie, I had submitted my book on Amazon, but at the time it was called Create Space. It was the KDP was separate. It was called Create Space, and I'm not sure if Amazon had bought it yet. Anyways, I submitted my book there and ordered a proof copy. The day the proof copy came in, I got an email from Schiffer Publishing.
Nice.
And they said, hey, we're interested in putting your book out. So now I have a physical copy in my hand where I literally, click publish, and I'm good to go.
Right.
Or I can go through a trad publisher, and I had to go that route. I had to see what that experience was like.
Yeah, for sure.
So that then that was another like 2-year process to finally like get the book out and and all that stuff. But that's like the origins of how I got into it all and how that kind of snowballed into writing and stuff like that.
There you go. All right. Yeah. We have similar sort of journeys in a way of just sort of like childhood wonder, and then unsolved mysteries turning into the library and all that. So, yeah. I was like wondering where that story with your family and the Northern Lights was going to go, because I'm like, oh shit, are they about to get like picked up by a spaceship or some shit? Like
that would be amazing. That would have been amazing.
And but be like, oh, are they like, they later your family would be like, yeah, no, we don't know what you're talking about. So I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't that.
Yeah, that would have been nuts. But being that age, they both seemed wondrous. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure.
And insane. Like they were one and the same to me. And like, oh, something weird happened above me. But yeah.
Yeah, you're kind of like, without the risk of stereotyping, you're like the Maine guy. You do Maine stuff. And it's like you've done the book on Mike Stevens' experiences, Grand Sky. So it's like not like so that's why earlier I said New England in general. But but your focus is a lot on Maine, and of course the new book In the Pines is Maine stories. So I guess talk a little bit about sort of what makes Maine special in this sort of weird sense, if you will.
Yeah. I find that that's really subjective and different for each person. And for me personally, besides my parents, who are lovely people, I was raised by 3 different men. And that was the 2 Stevens and Ice-T. And so that would be Steven Spielberg, Stephen King, and Ice-T. I was obsessed with all of them growing up. It's what occupied all of my time, unless I was in school or something. And so to focus on the Stephen King part of it, I didn't even know this guy was from Maine for a little while, and then I finally like figured it out. But I became aware of him because my mother read his books. And I just remember that gigantic It book sitting on a shelf somewhere, and it had that creepy claw coming out of the sewer. And, it was alien in nature. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't like a bear claw or like a cryptid claw or something. It was like reptilian or alien,
Yeah.
And it fascinated me. And so I feel like when you're open to it, when you're a Mainer that's open to it, Stephen King is a huge part of the macabre and the strange of growing up in Maine. And you see it through a different lens if you're into that part of the Maine's history, if you will. So that was a huge part of it for me, was the Stephen King and the macabre and the strange nature that Maine can be. When you're on a desolate dirt road, I don't see it as like, oh, I'm in a beautiful rural part of Maine. I'm like, there's probably a creature halfway down the road, and it's going to scare the hell out of me or something. I just see stuff through the scary light, and it's kind of a fun way to go through life, if you ask me. I got a story about being in Acadia National Park that I should tell you later, but yeah, so I don't know if that actually answers your question, but that's how it is for me. That's my perspective on it.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some of the stories in the book. The Goatman of Cherryfield. I thought this was a really, I love a good Goatman story, because it's like I'm sure you're probably kind of the same way, where it's like in all my years of doing this, it kind of takes a lot to sort of get me high. off the weird in a way. My tolerance is through the roof.
Yeah, we're desensitized, you know.
Right, exactly. So it's like I like a good Bigfoot account. They're great, and you know, UFO stories cool, ghost stories, you know,
Dime a
those are
dozen.
awesome. Yeah, but then you get like a Goatman story, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm listening here. Let's hear about the Goatman. So let's hear about the Goatman of Cherryfield, and yeah, I have a lot to say about it, but I want to hear you sort of recount this, and we'll get into it a little bit.
So I'll tell you the crux of the story and what is basically known of the story. In the 1950s, there's no exact date, a guy, there's no name, worked in the woods. That, to me, being a Mainer, says he was probably in logging or something like that, especially given that time frame and where it was. And even Cherryfield is rough. It's like right outside Cherryfield or around Cherryfield.
Yeah.
So it didn't even technically take place in Cherryfield. So this gentleman gets up early one morning to go to work. He fills up his gas tank and he starts driving in the woods. And so now he's on back roads going to his job site. And he's driving for a little while, and then his truck just stalls. And he's like, what the hell? And he looks down and he sees that his gas gauge is empty. And so he's like, what? It's like, oh no, I probably have a gas leak or something. So he hops out of the truck, goes underneath, and now he's feeling around. He's smelling, sniffing, you know, feeling around like there's no gas leak. Or like, what the hell? And then he starts to have this feeling of being watched. And so he's like, you know, it's making him uncomfortable. So he climbs out from under the truck and he stands up and he's looking around in the woods, and he finally turns 180 and looks. And he claims about 20 yards away from him is this figure. And he says its legs are hairy. They end in hooves. And it's got the face like with the snout and these pointed ears, and it looks like a goat. And really, I mean, if that's not strange enough, another really strange aspect is that he said it was wearing this plaid shirt.
Yeah.
And the creature then smiled at him. And in his opinion, like a thought entered his head, or it was a telepathic communication or something. But he got the feeling that this thing wanted him to follow it into the woods. So once that was like communicated or understood or whatever, the goat man turns around and walks back into the woods. And the guy's like, to hell with that. I'm not following this thing. So he hops back in the truck, and almost like muscle memory, he just like starts the truck up, and he's like, oh, it started. And he looks down and his gas gauge is full again. And he takes off and continues on his way. There's really no significant ending to the story or anything. So it's an intriguing little piece of lore, if you will. It sounds like lore when you hear it or read it. But I wanted to find out the origins of it, you know? And so I was searching. And one of my favorite places to go is the New England Folklore blog. And he's recounted the story, and he has his sources, which are the same sources where I'm finding my stuff. But there's no origin. Everybody's just citing each other.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, I know. I'll contact the Historical Society. Cherryfield has one. So I contact them and tell them what I'm doing. And they said, what? We've never heard of this. Hold, please, and we'll get back to you. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm thinking, you know, in my mind, they're in this like old church house or something, right? It's like, you know, like 4x4, this tiny room, this historical society in this tiny town. And they have like a ton of like old diaries or something. And they're going through those meticulously, like looking for Goatman or something. And I don't think any of that happened. They just sent me back a bunch of links, which are the sources I already have.
Right. You've already got, yeah.
Yeah. And so they couldn't help, but at least they tried. They attempted, you know, and they even followed up. So that was nice. But yeah, that's basically the Cherryfield Goatman in a nutshell.
Yeah. Well, what I really liked, and I'll put you over for, was that you did that digging to find out what the story, like no pun intended, but what the story is with the story. Like, oh, that was, I appreciate that you tried to track it down. It's a very strange story. I mean, we don't know the origin of it, but like roughly how old do you think the story is, or like how long ago is it said to have happened?
In the 1950s, so no exact date, but
Right.
so it was. I guess you could infer, like 70 years.
And how long has it been kicking around, sort of in the proverbial paranormal zeitgeist? Do you think?
I'm sure it was Lauren Coleman that brought it to my attention, not personally, but like through his books.
Yeah.
Or maybe even Cryptomundo. But no, I'm sure it was through one of his books. But probably the mid 70s, when like all the strange things were happening. UFO flaps every year. The Dover Demon happened, and I'm sure that resurfaced. Or Lauren was writing about the Dover Demon and Mothman in one of his books, and he also brought in the Cherryfield Goatman.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, because what interests me too is like you'll have to wonder, like the gas part. You point this out in the book that it's very much that's like. The car stops, it runs out of gas in this story, and then he gets in, the gas is back. It's like it mirrors the UFO phenomenon with the car stopping, but in this case, it's like with the car stopping, it's always like, oh, I don't know why the car stopped. In this case, we know theoretically, right, because the gas is gone. But the similarities are very interesting. I mean, we can only speculate as to what that's all about. So, I mean, I guess part of why I was trying to track the timeline in a way was just like, okay, is this something that like got attached to the story from the UFO phenomenon tales, or is it something, or can we actually draw some kind of interesting conclusion here where it's like, no, this thing ran concurrently and somehow this is a detail of the story that isn't, that this doesn't seem to have been influenced by popular UFO lore.
And I think the credibility of it not being influenced by UFO lore is the fact that the gas like disappears, as opposed to why did the car stop? It brings an even more uncanny or otherworldly aspect to this, seemingly cryptid encounter. If you're of the belief that cryptids are flesh and blood, to have an otherworldly aspect to it is interesting.
Yeah. Because then it goes beyond like a creature in a way. Because it's like, okay, this is something that can,
like, did it come from some realm? As opposed to 30 feet down in the woods.
Yeah. It's a wild story. Yeah. It's a really interesting wild story. Now, I did not send this one to you in the notes, but you posted about it today on Facebook, and it kind of. It jogged my memory of the story in the book, I didn't catch this at the time because, like, when I'm really into a book, which I was with yours, very often I'll be reading it, and then I'll like go like 60 pages or whatever, and then I'll be like, oh shit, I'm supposed to be writing stuff down I want to talk about, but I'm enjoying it so much I forgot to mention any of this stuff.
That's a high compliment. Thank you.
That's for real. That's why today when I said on my notes, I'm like, you have like 4 stories. Like there's like dozens in this book. Why the fuck didn't you write down any more? And it's like, I was just enjoying the book, dude.
That's awesome.
But you posted about it today on Facebook, and what struck me, I mean, the stories in the Pines run the gamut of sort of years and times, but what's really interesting is there are quite a few sort of contemporaneous stories in there, really like within the last 5 or 10 years, which is awesome because very often, like, you just don't really hear that many modern stories, especially sort of
that gets me that gets me salivating. I love a modern story. I love even addendums or follow-ups to an older story, and like something new happened 20 years later, like in the same area, something like that. I love modern stuff.
One sort of like request I'll make to you, or I wouldn't call it advice, I guess, because like I've never done it, but it's like I would do it. But it's like I always ask people who write about these stories, have you gone and tried to contact some of these people in the stories, like since the stories became so well known? Like I've had people on the show over the years, covering all different kinds of stories like this, where it's like, okay, the story happened like 83. Have you called have you tried to contact like the kid that was 20 in 83? Because he definitely would be likely still be around or whatever. So yeah, I would be interested if you ever try that, or I hope that maybe you would give it some consideration in the future. Because always these stories become part of the lore, and it's like I would love to, because like I'm kind of really. I've asked Lauren about like the guys from the Dover Demon story. Like they're still around and shit, but it's like one will talk and one won't, and it's kind of like I'm not going to really bother them unless I have something.
Yeah. Or like Brian Bethel with the Black Eyed Kid stuff. Like he's just really over talking about it or being interviewed about it.
Right. Yeah. So the stories in the book are fairly, so some of them are contemporaneous, and this Matinicus Rock stories.
Oh yeah,
2017, yeah. And I when I was reading it, I think I just glossed over that aspect of it, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is like a haunted lighthouse story,
it kind of reads like an old story.
Yeah, who the fuck's hanging around at lighthouses?
I know.
So that guy, I just didn't give it a second thought.
Yeah.
I saw your post today, and you mentioned that it was 2017, and I'm like, what? And I like grabbed the book and opened it up again, and I'm like, oh, this makes the story even fucking weirder because this happened like less than a decade ago. This isn't something that happened like in the 20s, which I was thinking as I read the story. It definitely reads like your classic haunted lighthouse account. Can you share some of the story with the listeners?
Yeah, let's see if I can remember some of it. So it was two Coast Guard guys, right? They weren't Navy.
Yeah,
Coast Guard.
Yeah, they were there for like they had to go to like
to do the maintenance
and make sure. Yeah, like an annual stop in to spend a couple weeks there and fix it up and shit.
Yeah. So the lighthouse was automated by this point, obviously in 2017, but I can't remember how many times per year, but the Coast Guard would actually have to go out and make sure everything was running okay with the light and the surrounding area. And of course they had the lighthouse to stay in, and two people were always assigned to go. And on this particular time, it was these two Coast Guard guys, and the first couple days went fine, but then weird stuff started to happen. And one of the first things that happened was the light stopped spinning, and they're like, well, that's not good. So they go up to the bulb, so they do the windy stairs all the way up, and they get into the room where the bulb is, and they find that there's this material or something shoved in the mechanisms that make it turn. And so they finally get it out, and they see that it's like this jacket or something, and there's and it looked like it had just like blown in off the ocean. There was like crustaceans or barnacles or some stuff on them. They're like, what the hell? And it was all soaking wet, but it wasn't storming or anything. So like, where the hell did this come from? But the point was to fix it and go back to bed. So they do. And as the nights progress, different things start happening. They're hearing walking going up and down the stairs that are near them. There's another incident with the light bulb where it stops turning again. And they go up and check, and now there's this other article of clothing different than the first one that's stuck in there, and it's soaking wet, and there's things on it. And so they get that out. And then one of the guys starts acting really strange. And his partner wakes up in the middle of the night, and the guy who's acting strange is like sitting up in bed facing the wall and like whispering to himself. And he's like, what are you, like, hey man, are you all right? And he kind of snaps out of it. And there's another time where that same guy that's starting to act really strange, he claims that like something came out of the wall and like grabbed him, like a hand grabbed him, like coming out of the wall. So anyways, it's been escalating for like a week and a half. And they're supposed to be out there, I think, for 2 weeks. And they can't stand the strangeness anymore. So they call a mayday to get picked up. And a boat comes, and it's filled with a bunch of other Coast Guard guys, and those Coast Guard guys can see that they might have had a rough go of it. And they said, hey, what was up with the earlier call, like before the mayday? And he's like, what are you talking about? Nobody called. Like the first call was the mayday. And he's like, well, no, we got another call, and it was weird, but they didn't get into the specifics, but that's basically the story in a nutshell.
A really cool part of the book that took me by surprise, and I don't know, maybe I don't read as many paranormal books as I used to these days, but so maybe this is like par for the course, and you're like, Binnall, you're an old man. You're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. Like you get with the times. But what was really cool is as you're going along in the book where you mention stuff, there's a QR code. You can take a little picture. You do the QR thing. You see, you can tell how much of a Luddite I am. And then that opens up like a little, your web browser on your phone to show you the picture of the different stuff that you're talking about. And I was like, holy shit, this is like from the future, this book. So I really enjoy that. I give it a high recommendation. It must be a new sort of thing that's happening now, but it's like more.
I got to tell you, I feel like I can't claim this 100% because it's not like I've read every book in the last 5 years, but I'm one of the few, if I don't know if I'm the first, but I'm definitely one of few that are doing that. And I didn't want to overwhelm either. Like, you can't have one for every story. It's too much.
Right.
But if I'm talking about a picture, or if I'm talking about a piece of audio or a piece of video or something, like, hey, why not? Or like an old article, from like an 1800s newspaper or something. It's cool to, just scan a thing and, because
super cool. Yeah.
Because like in the source, the citations section of the book, we'll put websites in there, and obviously they're not clickable, but that's how you actually cite some of these, with some other information in there. But I didn't want to put these links or anything. So, technology finally caught up where we could make the book a little bit more interactive. Yeah, I've gotten great feedback on it. So I'm glad you liked it.
It's wicked cool. It's super cool. Yeah. Yeah. And I know sort of the challenge too, where it's like some of the stuff you don't necessarily have the means to put in the book. You know what I mean? Because it'll be like, put the picture or whatever, but it's like you don't own the picture, and then it takes it is. It's a whole thing. So it's like it kind of gets around that problem really well. Now, one of the things I thought was interesting, I don't know why this sort of like, well, I know why actually. I don't know if you know the new Apple TV show Widow's Bay.
I haven't seen it, but I know it.
You're aware of it. Yeah.
I'm aware of it. Yeah.
It's like a haunted island, a possessed island or whatever off the coast of Massachusetts. So it's very filmed in Gloucester and all around that area.
Oh, is it filmed in Gloucester? That's all.
Yeah. And a whole bunch, and all the towns around there, essentially. Like, it's all filmed in Massachusetts.
That's cool.
And so, like, you mentioned it, just not the show, but you mentioned this thing, and I'm about to, you mentioned in the book that you're an island boy. It's kind of like in parentheses. So you're talking about something else, and you're like, I'm an island boy. Bar Harbor, I think you say.
Yeah.
And for some reason, and that like got me thinking about Widow's Bay, because like the people are like on the show. They just say it. It's not a spoiler, folks. So spoiler alert: like you can't leave the island, or something bad will happen to you if you're born on the island. So it was like, for some reason, when I saw the word island boy, it connected me to Widow's Bay. And I'm like, that's really interesting. Like, I don't think I've ever, barring someone from like Long Island or Staten Island, those don't count. Right. But, or like maybe even the Hawaiian Islands, but like, or they're these big islands. Yeah. It's, and I don't know how big Bar Harbor is, but I would imagine it's not. Okay. So to me, it was like, I don't think I've ever talked to someone who was like born, who's an island person, who was born on an island. Like, and I guess you have no frame of reference. It's not like, it's not like some enormous thing, but maybe it is. I don't know. But like, so do you find there's any sort of difference in a way of being someone who was born and grew up, I assume, or relatively on an island?
And that's the more accurate statement of it, that I grew up there. I was actually born in northern Maine next to Canada.
Okay. Yeah,
but at a very young age, we moved to the Bar Harbor area. So I feel like I'm from there, and that's where I grew up. And it's a different breed of people. Now, where I specifically live, there's also an affluent aspect to it. It's a very touristy area. We get millions of visitors over, a short period of time every year. We're actually in the thick of that right now. Like the last thing you want to do, at least in my opinion, because I know Reverend Redbeard, he went to the Bar Harbor fireworks, which is insane to me. Like, that's something that's not in high school because it's just too busy.
Yeah, that's like Salem on Halloween.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's a different breed of people. Very every place says that about their people, but so I'm sure it's very similar to other blue collar, really hardworking people and areas. But the hard work that a lot of these folks do are on a boat, and they're pulling up lobster traps, or they're out in the muck, digging up clams and all that good stuff. But yeah, it's to me, it's a hardy breed of people that are surprisingly really open-minded.
Yeah.
And there's also a heavy drug influence. That's a big thing in the area. I mean, nowadays it's a big thing everywhere, but.
Well, is it kind of like an insulated, because there's a whole bunch of island communities in Maine.
Yeah.
And I imagine, I guess you got to expand that into a broader sense where it's like, is it sort of like their own little bubble worlds? Because it's like to get to the mainland, you have you have to go on a boat and get across and all that. So it's like kind of, or is it more? What's it like?
Yeah, it's there are bridges, like you can drive out of town, so you don't have to take a boat. But I would say like down the coast, like where you hit Bar Harbor and up from that a little bit, and then down the coast down to southern Maine where you're more familiar, that whole area is a really big mix of affluent and blue collar, because they're all these little tourist destinations,
Right.
Just because Bar Harbor gets millions of people every year, so does Camden, which is an hour, down the coast, and and then the next place, Rockland, everybody's getting their millions of tourists, and there are people from away will prefer Camden over Bar Harbor for whatever reason, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do know that Bar Harbor also has, they used to call it Babylon, like jokingly, satirically, because of the affluent conspiracies and affluent shenanigans and crazy things that happened on the island, back when it was really getting like when the affluent started coming to this area to live. Lots
conspiracy, sort of like good old boy network kind of powers that be kind of thing.
Yeah, and people doing awful things and treating it like it's normal, and it's a really buried background. But there's a book called Bar Harbor Babylon.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't finish it for a while because it was annoying me so much on like how awful the originators and the people that made the island what it is. Just such awful people. I was like, oh my goodness. And it's like everywhere you turn, because now you can walk these certain areas and there's plaques up in Bar Harbor and it's talking about these people, but in a much different light, I don't think Bar Harbor's like necessarily hiding it, because I'm sure you can go to the Historical Society and find out this info. I mean, the person that wrote Bar Harbor Babylon knew about it. So.
Yeah, exactly.
It's acquirable information. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on it. I don't think they're in this bubble. I think we're very much like other Maine island communities. I think it's all very similar.
All right. Interesting. Let me see here. Richard Gagne's Sea Monster. Now, this was really interesting. I'm very interested sort of in the ending of this story. Like, what the hell became of this thing? It's a very mysterious sort of ending where it's like you would think, but you think we'd be able to look at it or whatever. But
yeah, but it's just lost to time, really. And this is a more modern.
That's what I mean. That's
sea serpent thing. Even though it was like 1967, it's one of the more modern ones, because like some of the earliest ones before that, I think, are the 1900s, maybe 1920s. Is it for my area anyway? And but yeah, this gentleman, he was out, he was one of these island boys, and he was going out. He was in the southern Maine area, though, and he was going out and doing his fishing thing. And he ends up pulling up this weird, I don't know, this weird organic thing. And he's like, well, what the hell is this? And is it a shark that's been eaten by something? He couldn't tell what it was. But the more he looked at it, the more strange it seemed to him. He had like a partial fin, and he had the skull, and the skull was looked like a snake skull, but it was huge. Somebody said they could put their fist through one of the eye sockets. Like, that's how big it was. And it was just really strange looking. So he brings it back to land, and it creates a tizzy for like everybody, and people are coming from all over. Like a lot of scientists are coming from all over to like check this thing out, to like have an opinion on what the hell this thing is. And of course, all of these people are trying to relate it to known animals. But even, I can't remember if it was a Coast Guard guy or somebody, but even he saw the thing and he's like, that's probably what a sea serpent would look like if we were to find remains of one. And he actually went back out to try to find more pieces of it, and he found like another fin. And he also said that it looked like it had feathers on it at one point, which is a really weird thing.
That's the weird part. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird.
And, so a lot of people came to look at it, had a lot of opinions on it. Gagne didn't want anybody taking it away from him. So I don't know if it just sat and rotted in his shed or garage or whatever.
Yeah.
But by the end of this thing, nobody knows what happened to it. The
right
thing. And so, I don't know if it was just lost to time or once Gagne passed away, his kid didn't want it anymore or something. I don't know. And just got it all. But it's a strange and kind of cool little story that just kind of popped up out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's really weird that like that there weren't like actual like samples taken or anything. So that's like a strange, especially that time of, it was relatively. It was recently, relatively speaking. And, there may be, and you include a picture of Gagne with the sea monster through the clever QR code thing on the book. And but what struck me, and maybe there are others, but it was like it just shows how spoiled we are nowadays, because like the picture's like awful. Yeah. And it's like, how are there not more? Like I need like National Geographic fucking pictures.
I searched high and low, and it was hard to find other people even talking about it. So it's like, well, I have to share the story just based on that alone. But the strangeness with the bird feathers, that no samples were taken, hardly any pictures were taken. There was like the one newspaper picture.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's an archive at one of these colleges or the high schools where one of these, scientists came from, and maybe there's personal photos somewhere.
That's a good avenue.
That would be a good place to start anyway. But
yeah, it's interesting, because part of me also is like, I highly doubt it, but it's like, is this like a Fiji mermaid situation? Did this guy cobble something together? But then like you would think, I don't know though. I suppose if he, Patterson Gimlin, man, he might have put something together that was so good that they were like, I can't figure out what it is. Because the feathers part to me was like, okay, maybe this like, that old like flying trout thing or whatever the furry trout or whatever. It's like, maybe this was something that this guy made and then it got out of hand and then he was like, I'm going to release it back into the sea.
and he was very insistent on keeping the remains,
Yeah.
And then it was just lost to time because maybe the son was tired of keeping dad's lie. So he just, let's just get rid of it, man.
Yeah. It's a crazy story.
Yeah.
Because you rarely, like I said, it takes a lot sort of to get my dander up. And it was like, that one was like, a sea monster possible recovery. Now we're getting somewhere.
Those are rare. Those are rare.
Yeah. Super rare. Now, the last of the stories I sort of have pinned here in the thing has a somewhat personal connection in a way, not super personal, but this is the Lost in a Rennie's story. And what I love about the book is, you do the ghosts, UFOs, creatures, or ghosts, creatures, UFOs, and then there's like true crime. I'm a huge true crime fan, so I was like,
same.
Yeah. So I was like, oh wow, this is like a real feast here. This book. So I'm reading Lost in a Rennie's, the story in the book, and you mentioned, which really surprised me because I'm like, these are Maine stories. Obviously, this thing happens in Maine, this incident. We're going to get to it in a minute. But the couple involved are from Lexington, Mass. And I live in Burlington, Mass, which is right next to Lexington, Mass. So the borders, like I literally.
That's crazy. Have you heard of the story?
I have not heard of the story, and I asked my mom, who's like 80, and she did not know of the story either. So it was like it's Yeah. So it was really strange. And I actually did look it up afterwards too, to see if, but there really isn't, it's on a couple of Reddit posts and stuff like that, but it's not like, I don't think it's gotten, like the Chronicle treatment or anything. It's not been on Netflix or something. Or
Right.
I don't think it's even had like an ID episode.
I don't think so. But some YouTubers have covered it. I watched a pretty compelling one, which they might have been the original place where I was like, oh, this story's great. Well, not great, but you know what I mean? Like, very fascinating.
It's compelling.
Yeah. So, 1980, there's this woman named Virginia Douglas, lives in Lexington, Massachusetts with her husband, Frank. And Frank has decided to retire. And Virginia met him working at the bank that he was retiring from. And once they got together and got married and had kids, she stopped working at the bank and became a homemaker, taking care of the kids and all that good stuff while Frank stayed at the bank. And as retirement was approaching for Virginia, or from her perspective, the last couple of years hadn't been great with Frank. She felt despondent. She felt like he maybe had even fallen out of love with her and was just kind of going through the motions. And she was hoping that this retirement would change things and he'll be around more and they can do more stuff. But the exact opposite started happening. He was going out even more, doing all these fun things on his own, like without his wife, or quote unquote on his own. We don't know.
Yeah, right.
And he was, he took up hobbies that she had no idea he was interested in, like chess and tennis and all this stuff. And he would even go on these little trips, quote unquote, again, by himself. So she even drew further into a depression. And it kind of all culminated on this day where he was actually home and they were outside doing some gardening and doing some yard work and stuff. And Frank was kind of done doing whatever bullshit he was doing and went inside. And Virginia finally gets done doing what she was doing, 10, 15, 20 minutes later, and goes to go inside as well, but the door's locked. And she's like, what the hell? So she knocks on the door to, get Frank's attention, and he doesn't come to the door. 5-10 minutes goes by. She's like, what the hell? Now she's banging on the door. She's yelling. Finally, Frank opens the door. He's like, oh God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to lock it, and I've been in the bathroom and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, and was angry.
Right.
And thought that he had done it on purpose. So, time's going by now. It's the afternoon, and they're just kind of, Virginia's not doing great, and Frank's kind of just going about his business. And the next thing that Virginia knows, he's like, hey, I've got a great idea to make this up to you, just so you know that I didn't do this on purpose. Let's go up to Bar Harbor, Maine. Let's leave tonight and we'll go to Bar Harbor. And she's like, what? And she got really excited. And she's like, okay, maybe things are going to kind of start going the other way. And, our relationship's going to get back on track. So she packs a bag and, packs Frank's stuff and all that good stuff. And they take off. And they leave about 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. And they get into Maine and stop in South Portland at this motor inn place. And Frank checks them in and everything, and they spend the night and they have a good time, all that good stuff. They take off the next day, and they're going to get to Bar Harbor. It's probably another 3.5 hours or so to get up to Bar Harbor. So they get to the Belfast area, and Belfast is just about, I think about an hour maybe to Bar Harbor. And Virginia needs to use the bathroom and wants to pick up some things. So she asks him if Frank will stop at Rennie's, which is a department store all throughout Maine. And she can go to the bathroom and pick up some stuff. And he's like, yeah, sure. So he pulls up to the front, lets her out. She goes in, he parks. Well, she's in there, and 5 minutes goes by, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And Frank's like, what the hell is taking so long? So he gets out and goes in the store, and he goes directly to where the bathrooms are, knocks on the woman's door, pokes his head in, like, Virginia, where the hell are you? Are you in here? And there's no answer. So now he's searching the rest of the store, and he can't find her. And he's like, maybe we crossed paths, and now she's outside waiting for me, So he goes back out to the car, and she's not there either. So he gets back in, and he's sitting there, and he's like, what the hell? I don't know what to do. So like another whatever, amount of time, 20, 30 minutes goes by, and he decides to go back in, talk to the manager. And he explains that he can't find his wife, and could he and some employees like look around for her? And he's like, yeah, sure. So they kind of look all over Rennie's, and they can't find her either. And Frank, after what, an hour or so has gone by, he's like, I think I got to call the cops. The manager agreed. And so the cops get called. They come over. He explains the whole thing. The manager's there. He explains that they searched the whole store. So now everybody's searching, and they're searching surrounding areas too. They're out in the parking lot. They're looking in other areas, and they can't find her. So I think the next day is Sunday, and they're closed. And Frank goes, hey, can we come back and literally search everywhere tomorrow? Because you'll be closed. And the manager's like, obviously, yes. So now a bunch of cops come the next day. They're searching everywhere. They're even on the roof. They're moving stuff from like shelves, and looking for no sign of her anywhere. Now, at this point, cops start getting suspicious.
Right.
And they're like, what happened before this? We need to know, and they've questioned Frank a few different times, and he's not giving them anything. He's explaining that everything was fine. We did this random trip, and, we're having fun and all that good stuff. And they're not getting anything out of him. So they called the police down in Lexington, and they explained what's going on. And they said, can you get to the house and search around and see what's going on over there? And they call the adult children of Virginia and Frank to go to the house to let the cops in. And their two daughters, again, adult aged. And so they open up the house for the cops. The cops already explained everything to them. So they're concerned, and they're looking around to see if there's anything out of the ordinary at the house. And the first thing they notice is that some of the windows are open. And they know mom and dad wouldn't leave like on a trip with windows open, like you're just inviting a break-in. And then they noticed that there was a lot of food in the fridge, like fresh food. And they know that their mother wouldn't go grocery shopping and then immediately go on a trip. Now, maybe she didn't know she was going on a trip. So is it plausible? But they said if she didn't know and it was spur of the moment, she would have packed some stuff for like a picnic. Yeah. And it didn't seem like, and it didn't seem like she packed anything. And then they find blood and hair by the back door. Not good, Yeah. So Frank's hauled in again, and they're explaining like what he found or what they found, and he's not giving up the goods, and they can't seem to shake anything out of him. A psychic gets involved at one point, very short-lived, and was like, Virginia never left the house, or Virginia's still in the store. I can't remember which way she said, but it wasn't useful info. And Frank, with the ride up and going through southern Maine, they caught wind of some tip about Sebago Lake, which was near where they stayed at the Motor Inn in South Portland. And they did this search a couple years later at Sebago Lake for whatever reason, and they didn't find anything. They kept re-interviewing people that Frank interacted with. Yeah. The lady at the Motor Inn who checked them in never saw Virginia. She only saw Frank. And Frank actually had some odd behavior inside Rennie's where he was seen purchasing women's lingerie, and then he put him in Virginia's empty suitcase, which had nothing else in it, which that obviously seems very suspect.
That's super suspect.
Yeah. So years go by, and Frank dies. And with it, what happened to Virginia.
Solution to the story, yeah.
Yeah. And, people, true crime people who have, who do know the story certainly suspect Frank. They think he killed her, and they think he killed her in Massachusetts, probably at the house. And she never went to Maine. Only Frank did to cover his story. But that's the Lost in the Rennies in Maine story.
Yeah, that's my conclusion too. That he murdered her. You do a great job in the book of sort of being like, it's like almost like the mind of a Discovery ID producer, where you're like, see, but if I told you this story, logical way or whatever, like it's not as sort of vexing in a way. But it's like, right. To me also, I'm thinking of the story. I'm like, this guy definitely killed his wife. And then it's like, he's a bad guy, folks. Let's get that out of the way. But then it's like, the balls on this dude. The balls, man. Like, what? Also, kind of like, what are you, fucking nuts? Like, why? Like, what? So you murder your wife, and then you're going to concoct the story that she went in and vanished in the department store. And it's like, you got to be really fucking definitely crazy to like.
And
it's like it's one thing you I don't know, you bury her somewhere and you go, I don't know, she fucking left and never came back, and I'm as concerned as you are.
Right.
It's like to invent this sort of Twilight Zone situation.
So specific.
Wild.
Yeah, it's just really strange behavior. Like everything was premeditated if we're going off the assumption that he's the one that did it, which we should.
Right.
But he was sitting in that parking lot to make sure everything looked the way it was supposed to look. I'm sure he pulled right up to the front door too, just in case there was some sort of, I don't know what they have for security cameras.
Or somebody saw him back then.
Yeah. Recognize, oh yeah, I did see the car pull up. He must have let her out, because why else would he pull up to the front? So
yeah. Like he goes through all the motions to like sell this insane fucking story, and it's like, and then the other part, like, the other part was like, it's like, bro, like I don't even know why you're buying lingerie, dude. Whatever. I don't really care. Have a good time. Sounds like a party to me. But it's like, what the fuck are you buying it at the store where your wife vanished, you idiot?
I know.
Like, what are you trying to like? They're looking for your wife. Like, you're not a random person in the store anymore. Like, people are aware of and so would you just slink off to the fucking lingerie section and buy the shit? Like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing, dude? Oh man, but he got away with it, which is so it's even crazier.
Yeah, to this day, it's an unsolved mystery, and it's a really fascinating piece of such odd behavior for a person trying to get away with a crime. Like, if you were to write this out on paper, you'd be like, that's ridiculous. I'm going to get caught. But he ends up getting away with it.
It's really like, I just don't think that would fly in 2026. I think it would fall apart. Like, well, with all the cameras and shit, it definitely would. But it's like to think... But he did get away with it, so it's like, joke's on me, dude.
Yeah,
it's like,
fuck us, I guess. Yeah. Like you did it,
Frank. You fucking crazy bastard! You somehow pulled it off.
And he seemed like a giant asshole. You know what I mean? So I could see him. Thinking. I'm sure he was a narcissist, and he's like, "Oh, this is the best story ever. Of course, I'm going to get away with it." And turns out, he did.
Yeah, I mean, part of me wonders, like, if the lingerie is like for his mistress, like,
right. Well, since I'm here,
like, we pulled it off, that kind of thing.
Let's celebrate, baby.
Before they figure this out. It's a really crazy story, and it's like, you know what it reminds me of? You probably have heard of this. It's a New England sort of one. There's the guy in Vermont that like vanished on the bus.
I don't know if I know that one.
It's like part of the whole Bennington Triangle story. I don't know, like off the top of my head. Some guys, like, it's like a packed bus, and somehow if they stop somewhere and he's fucking is in that area. I didn't even realize it was in that area. That's crazy. Yeah. It's a pretty. It's a really story. Like a vanishing. I always find vanishing stories to be particularly like non-politest ones. That's perfectly fine. No, I like ones that have been vetted by other sources, I guess you could say. But yeah. They're crazy. Now, I hate to sort of do this to you, but it's like, I get these kind of things all the time. Do you have, you've written a shitload of books, not within the new book, but just sort of, because this is the first time I've talked to you. Is there any do you have any signature tale that is one of your favorite sort of stories that I may not have heard, that I haven't heard from you at all, because this is the first time you've been on the show. But it's like, as I said before, you're kind of the Maine guy. You've written a bunch of stories on Maine, I'm sure, and this book follows several others. So I'm sure there's some really compelling things that you've written about in the past. Do you have any ones that stick out that you're like, this is a killer one? Yeah, there's a big handful of them, but there's two in particular. But there's two in particular that I love, and I still think about. One of them's really short and sweet. I'll tell that one first. It's about an alien. This happened over a decade ago, 2009, Southern Maine. I actually talked to this woman. But I talked to her much later. This was like 15 years later I talked to her.
15, is that math make? Yeah, pretty close. 12, 13, 14 years. Anyway.
Yeah. This isn't a math program.
Right. We're not doing math tonight. So it's 2009. It's summer and it's early evening. And she is outside talking on the phone with her father. And her dog, whose name is Chance, is with her in the backyard, just kind of roaming around. Her boyfriend's in the house doing whatever. And so she's just like talking to her dad, and she notices that Chance really hasn't like moved in a while. He's just kind of like sitting there really stiff and straight, looking at something. So he's like, okay, weirdo, but like kind of keeps talking to her dad. But then Chance starts to emit this really strange guttural growl that she'd never heard before. She's heard him bark, she's heard him growl before, but this was like different. And she's like, what the hell is going on with you? So she's looking at him and she sees that he's staring at something, and now he stands up. Before he was sitting, now he stands up and he's staring at something. So she follows his gaze across the yard, and she says that at the base of this tree across the yard is this alien that's kneeling down, staring directly at her.
Jesus.
And she said it must have been 8, 10, 12 feet tall because it was all arms and legs. It was just so.
Yeah.
And so she's looking at this thing and she's talking to her dad, and she's like, Dad, I gotta go. And so she starts to, she hangs up and she's starting to put the phone down into her pocket. And that movement or something kind of signaled to the dog, like, yeah, go after this thing. So Chance takes off running and is barking and running at this alien. The alien, looks at Chance, stands up and starts running away. When it stands up, she sees that he's about 7, 8 feet tall, this alien thing. And it's running away. And while it's running away, she sees it start to disappear from the head down. Oh. And at one point, she's just seen legs running. And then it disappears completely. This is all happening in like 20 seconds,
Right, yeah.
And the dog Chance, when the thing disappears, he stops running too, but continues to bark at whatever's in front of him, So she's like, what the hell just happened? So she's like freaking out, but she also needs to take care of the dog, get the dog out of there. So she wrangles Chance and gets him inside. And then her boyfriend comes down because he hears all the hubbub, because she's screaming, the dog's barking. He comes downstairs. She explains everything that happened, and he believes her. She doesn't just go around making up crazy tales like this.
Right.
She's not even into aliens or UFOs. So they go out into the backyard to see if there's any sort of evidence of it having been there. But, there was like lawn and gravel, so nothing that would really make a footprint. So they're like, dang. And really, that's the story in a nutshell, other than talking to this woman all these years later. And she's like, when I close my eyes, I still see the fucking thing. Like, why? Why did this have to happen? And I never have a good answer,
Yeah.
So the only thing I could say is, if you allow me, like, thank you for sharing your story, but if you allow me to share it in a book, somebody who can't come forward like you have, somebody who can't might read it and maybe not feel so alone. And it wasn't the best answer, but it was, I think, something she appreciated, but I didn't have obviously a good answer to what the hell happened,
Yeah. Well,
that's a crazy one.
That's a great story. Yeah. I've lamented over the years that, like I was saying earlier, you find some of these contemporaneous stories. Yeah. And I was lamenting that, like, you just don't you don't hear too many of these, specifically like humanoids. I know you have a humanoid book, and it's like you really don't hear too many humanoid stories as much as you used to. So I appreciate that.
I love finding almost never published, certainly not widely published stories like that. So the more obscure, the better. And if it's from Maine, then it's, I eat it right up.
It's a bonus.
Yeah. Another one that I find fascinating. We touched on briefly before about being desensitized to all this stuff. Yeah. One of like the last bastions of the paranormal for me, like the final frontier, if you will, are black-eyed children. I love those stories.
Yeah.
A lot of them really creep me out, And it's a favorite to share when I do like talks at libraries and stuff, because it really a lot of people don't know, the casual
paranormal
doesn't really know.
Fresh,
yeah. They don't know about black-eyed kids, so it's always a good creepy one to do. And so I love Black Eyed Kids stories, and I found some that had happened in Maine, and one actually happened in Bangor, where you and I are going to be in a couple of days. Although by the time this comes out, we've already been there.
Yeah, we're
and I'm sure we had a great time. So this woman in Bangor, it's about 10 o'clock at night, and she's sitting in the living room reading, and her cat is sitting on her lap. And after just a bit, the cat kind of stands up in her lap and hisses at the door and then jumps off her and runs away. Well, cats are friggin' weirdos. So she just kind of shakes her head at the cat and continues reading. Well, a second later, there's a knock on the door. And she's like, what the hell is this? Like, who's knocking on my door at 10 o'clock at night? Her husband's out working the late shift. If it were him, he would have just come in, or he would have called or something. He's not just going to stand and knock at the front door.
Right.
So it concerns her, but she gets up and she looks out the peephole or the window or whatever and doesn't see anybody. She's like, that's weird. Are the neighbor kids playing around with me? Although they've never done that before. But anyway, so she sits back down. She's just about to get her spot back in her book where she was reading. There's another knock on the door. And she's like, all right, that's enough of this. So she just gets up immediately and whips open the door. And she's immediately relieved to see a kid standing there. And then she is shocked to see a kid standing there at 10 o'clock at night, because she's like, oh my God, like something must be wrong,
Yeah.
So she's like, are you okay? What's going on? The kid looks up at her. And, the telltale sign, he's got the all black eyes. And she immediately gets a sense of dread coming over her. And he's like, can I come in? And she doesn't want to do it. She's terrified, but her hand is moving involuntarily to open the door. Yeah. So she's like, I don't want this to happen. Like, she's trying to fight it. And just then the cat hisses. And she turns and looks at it, and it's sitting on the carpet in front of the front door, hissing at the kid. Yeah. And when that happened, it kind of knocked her out of her trance. I don't know if it's because she looked away or what. But she's like, nope, and slams the door and locks it. It's like, fuck that kid. And she goes and turns on lights and, is staying up and, holding on to the cat. Like, oh, God, thank you for saving me. And finally, her husband gets home. She tells him everything and he believes her. She just doesn't make weird stuff up like this. So he believes her. And for the next few years for her, but the following few weeks for the cat, it would often be skittish by the front door. It would often stand somewhere and watch the front door, almost expecting for this thing to come back. And anytime it was nighttime, she made sure her husband checked the door 15 times to make sure it was locked and all that good stuff. But it bothered her for years after that. Of course it would,
Yeah, that's the kind of story that stays with you your entire life.
Yeah.
You puzzle over forever.
The following year, I might have had a run-in with the Black Eyed Kids in the same town.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, this is speculation, anecdotal at best, but I was visiting with a friend, and we had stayed up watching a movie. It was 1 a.m. I'm like, I got to get out of here. I got to go home, go sleep, And they're like, okay. So I get in my car and I leave. And they go upstairs and they do their evening ablutions, brushing their teeth and all that stuff. And they finally get to bed. And almost immediately when they lie down, they start hearing this soft knocking on their back door. And the back door is the only door they use. They never use the front door.
Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting that it was at that door specifically. And it's incessant. It doesn't stop. It's just knock, 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 knock. And it's soft. But they're like, what in the hell is that? Is that Nomar? Is he down there being a weirdo, So they get up and they walk across the hall, and the bedroom there, the window overlooks the parking lot where they can see if my car is still there. And it's not. And all they have to do is actually look down and they would see at the back door. And they were like, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm terrified because the knocking is still happening while they're doing
Jesus.
Yeah. So they go back, lay down in bed, and they text me. And they're like, are you at the back door right now knocking? And I'm like, no. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And it's everything I just told you that they explained to me. And I'm like, oh my goodness. When I left, because I immediately went to Black Eyed Kids when I heard this.
Yeah.
So when I left, were the Black Eyed Kids standing in the shadows, like waiting for me to leave? So, and to go knock on the door. So could I have been tangentially in the vicinity of Black Eyed Children? Maybe, I don't know. But again, anecdotal at best. It could have just been a neighbor kid being an asshole. I don't know. But
yeah, who knows?
We never found out.
You were aware of the Black Eyed Kids at the time, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Maybe it somehow manifests out of you, not like all the time, but in that one instance. Maybe you were thinking about it earlier or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, because I might have even gotten Weatherly's book that year.
It's possible.
That might have been the same year. Yeah.
Yeah, those are great stories. Those are great. Yeah. I haven't heard much about the Black Eyed Kids in a long time.
Yeah, same.
This Brian Bethel, who's this character you mentioned?
Brian Bethel. He was the catalyst for the modern Black Eyed Kids story. He was the guy down in Texas, and they knocked on his car window, and they're like, "Hey, Mister, can you give us a ride to our mother?"
Yeah, all right.
He's the dude, and he's just a dude. Well, he's a journalist, but he's just like a regular dude, and there's tons of paranormal people who have friended him on Facebook, and he always seems to accept your friendship, which is cool. But he was asked recently. He posted about it on his Facebook. He was asked recently by the original producers of Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
There's the Netflix reboot. Apparently it's not done by the original guys. The original producers contacted him and said, hey, we're starting up like a YouTube series. So you can tell they're not in the best place, but they're starting up a YouTube series, and they wanted to do Brian's story, and he's like, oh, I don't want to tell this friggin' story again. And you can tell he's kind of over it, but it's also Unsolved Mysteries. And if it's the original dudes, he's like, I might consider it actually. And people were being encouraging in the comments. So that was cool. But
yeah. Unsolved Mysteries. Yeah. Interesting. I have to,
you should friend him. He's got fun opinions too, so it's cool just to see him.
That's always good.
Yeah.
That's always good. Talk a little bit. Now we're wrapping it up here, so I'll get you going. I got a couple things I want to ask you about after the show too. So
sure.
But talk a little bit about Haunted Pines. You also have a podcast, as I mentioned at the start of the show. So what's Haunted Pines all about?
Haunted Pines was birthed after my original podcast, I Want to Believe, which I had for like 8 years and had 8 seasons, going on 9 seasons. And I got into a whole copyright thing with music, with Spotify, because they had changed some parameters on how they use them.
Oh, you too? Okay.
Yeah.
Did you use like regular music?
Yeah, but they said you could use, if it's, Spotify, you can use their library. Well, licensing kind of goes crazy, and Spotify doesn't hold the license all the time for every song ever made, So I had a lot of shows that were in a copyright infringement thing because of these licensing things. So Spotify is like, fuck you can't do that. I'm like, okay, so we take the show down or whatever. But apparently I got too many warnings that they just stopped the show.
Yeah.
And kicked me off of Spotify. I'm like, well, shit, okay. Well, I didn't want to do the podcast anymore anyway. Whatever. I was annoyed and upset. So I stopped podcasting for less than a year, and then I was getting the itch again.
Oh yeah.
So I started a new one, and I'm doing it the right way, but not with Spotify, but I'm not using anything copyrighted. And they're wildly overproduced, but they're these short, like 15 to 20 minute short stories where, I'm a storyteller. So I tell a story, but there's also a soundtrack and there's sound effects. And
cool.
if there's a recording or something, of somebody saying something that's part of the story, I'll use that in there. And that just started up this year. A new episode actually comes out on Thursday. And that episode is about modern vampire encounters that people claim to have had.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
There's an episode about Joyce Dahmer, Jeffrey Dahmer's mother, who had a UFO sighting in the 1970s in Ohio. And so it's just a story about that, a podcast about that. So it's just fun little short bite-sized high strangeness things.
Nice. One side tangent is a true crime buff. Do you have any like pet cases? Not from like, you've written about or anything. Is there anything that you you are a huge sort of like really
Yeah, there's a few. The Chris Watts case that was, that's something I can still rewatch that Netflix documentary on Chris Watts.
the Colorado
American Nightmare, I think it's called. Shanann and the kids that he murdered, Family Annihilator. So Chris Watts, I can always still watch, or if there's any new information, I'm always curious. There's also this other kid. I think his name is Chandler. This happened a few years ago now. It was like the early 2020s, which is a crazy thing to say. Time goes by so fast. But anyways, he was this like young kid. He was still living at home with his parents. And I say young relatively. He was like 19 or 20 or something. And he had this job and he worked from home. But come winter or whatever, he said he got a job at Starlink and he was going to be making all this money and all this good stuff. And it turns out he was never going to school. He never got hired at Starlink. And since the time was coming where all of this was either going to hit the fan or what, he decided to kill his parents. And then he like chopped them up and threw them in a fireplace at his place. And all at the same time, he was like still visiting his girlfriend. His girlfriend even came over and slept there.
Okay. Wow.
Like the night after. Yeah. It's a wild fucking case. And he was like, he had a brother too. And his brother was like, I can't believe, obviously it's happened. His brother was older. But yeah, it's a crazy case, and he was obviously found guilty and convicted of the crime because he did a horrible job doing the crime.
Yeah, I thought that one was gonna be. I don't know if you know this case, but it's just a weird case. A guy fell under the spell of like an OnlyFans girl, but before OnlyFans.
Oh, that guy. Yeah. I know that guy.
He said he was going to school and everything. And
that was the same dude that did the stuff with Aaron.
Yes. That's crazy. That's the crazy part. Yeah. So like he fell under this gal's spell and like spent all his money and all the family's money and like maxed out his parents' credit cards and shit. And then like when the shit hit the fan, he murdered them and like tried to kill his brother and went to jail down in Florida, of course. And then like it blew my mind. It's kind of the reaction you had there when I'm reading it. Then he pops up back in the news like last year because when the wife of the ghost hunter was planning to have him killed, it came about through like a pen pal love affair with this guy. He's really got the worst long distance relationship record at this point. So he's writing to her back and forth. He's never fucking getting out of jail. And he's like, I can set you up with a guy who'll kill your husband. And like, it all goes, of course, haywire and, like a Coen Brothers movie. And she gets, she's busted and now she's in jail for trying to have the ghost hunter killed.
Yeah.
That's
Wild.
a crazy story. That might be one of the only guys who gets like two separate episodes of like an IT show because he's like in that one because I'm like I saw the show, that's how I knew about the case, and then I'm like, oh shit, he's like sitting there in the prison in Florida like sequel baby.
Yeah. dude, his interrogation video is wild for the original killing of his parents and whoever.
It's crazy. I don't want to say itchy, but I really followed the Delphi case. I was really I'm a big believer in the Delphi conspiracy. I think the guy that they convicted was set up.
The guy. Wow.
Yeah, I'm strongly of that opinion.
Dude, I always thought I don't think
Justin's case.
Okay, because I don't think I followed like after the guy was arrested. I'm like, oh, okay, so I guess it's all done and everything. So I didn't really like look into it anymore. But I always thought the land, the old guy's land where the two girls were found, like he was such a weirdo. He seemed like he was an asshole, and I thought he was suspicious.
Well, what happened was, and I'm this is all sort of off memory, but from being a huge student of the case, I guess you could say. So and I obviously, with the caveat that they're the defense lawyers and shit, but like at the halfway, as in the preliminary parts before the trial, they like introduced this document essentially that like lays out the whole fucking defense, which is that it was like a cult of like they fancied themselves like Vikings. You know what I mean? Like that kind of like Finlanders and shit.
Okay.
But it was like dudes in Indiana, good old boys who, you know, like to party and shit and do God knows what. And also it was kind of very tangentially sort of in the very close, if not in sort of like the white supremacist realm where it's like, we're fucking Vikings and shit. And, you know, and you know, if you want to be in the gang, you got to fucking kill somebody and shit. Because when they found the dead girls, there were like there were sticks arranged over them, like runes and shit.
Okay.
And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, right. At first, you're like, all right. Then, like in the report, they're like in the filing or whatever, they're like, yeah, we're citing this FBI report that the fucking FBI did for the Indiana State Police, wherein the FBI consulted with fucking rune experts from Harvard and shit and like some other university. And like the rune experts were like, yeah, those are fucking runes. Those are runes. And they were like, and then the guy they arrested was like some fucking dope who, you know,
Yeah.
he was just a guy. He's not like, there was no, he's not, you know, it's like, it's not like people know you and I are into Bigfoot or whatever. It's like no one was like, oh yeah, the rune dude down the street.
Right.
It's like, what the fuck are you talking about runes and shit? And then the whole trial was like, it was a whole crazy,
Wow.
just really like they wouldn't let him introduce any of this in the fucking trial. So yeah, so it was like that's all they had. And then when they arrested the guy, they put him in a solitary confinement in prison. And it was for his own safety. And they kept him in solitary confinement for like 2 fucking years and like doped him up and shit. And he was like, they have calls where he's like calling his wife and being like, yeah, I killed him. Just let me out of here. I'll kill him. I'm so sorry. And just saying anything to get out of it. And then of course, they allowed them to play the confessions in the thing.
Right, of course.
And then they let them show like a couple of videos of him. And they show the video and he's like emaciated. You know, he's just like... They have to drag him around like by chains and shit because he's like all, you know, out of his mind essentially. And it's like, you guys really, something happened here. Like the theory is that like this kind of like we were talking about earlier with the conspiracies, the elite conspiracy kind of thing, where it's like the theory maybe is like, well, these good old boys probably kind of intermingle with the cops.
Yeah.
And it's all like, look, you guys really fucked up. And, you know, we're going to be unable to solve the case. And then they kind of found this dude that said he was like, yeah, I was there that day. And that's all they really kind of have on it.
Jeez.
Yeah. He was like, I was there that day. And I think I might have seen those girls. And then they were like, and yeah. And then there's like some really wonky ballistic evidence. It's like, well, wait a minute. You know, it's very, they dug a bullet casing out of the ground and they were like, and they matched it and it was unfired. And they're like, there's a new science that can show us that this was in your gun. And they're like, a lot of people are like, that's not even reliable science at all.
Wow.
So it's he's appealing it. It's a crazy story. It was,
wow.
Yeah. Yeah, Delphi. It's like one of those things where it's like, oh, okay. Usually it's like, oh, they solved it, you know, like a year ago. So the Night Stalker or the Long Island serial killer. It's like, they solved it. And the guy was a monster, and you know. And this one, it was like, well, this is something really fucking weird here with this story.
Wow. Well, now I'm a believer. He should be freed. This poor guy.
At least get another trial where they all this evidence.
Yeah.
It's crazy shit. Like one of the gang members they interviewed, like he was a little slow and you know, he was kind of evasive and shit. And then like as the cops were leaving, he's like, hey, just kind of wondering, like, if you get my DNA off those girls, like if I had spit on them or something like that, is that possible? And they were like, hey, you know, they just kind of brushed it off. But like it was in the police records, dude. Wow. The defense like put in this thing. So it's like it happened. The guy fucking said it. The cops documented that he said that. It's like, why you didn't follow up on that, dude? Like what's going on here? Yes, super shady. Anyway, all right. Well, go ahead. No,
wildly different than this case because it doesn't involve a murder. But I don't know if you're hip to the Lego bricks and minifigs.
I've been crazy to following it.
It's wild. It's wild. There's a YouTuber, if you're into YouTube, there's a guy named Reckless Ben.
Yeah.
Got to get to his channel, and he's got 2 videos up right now. A third one's coming out, and the third one couldn't come out for quite a while because he was silenced by the police. But it seems like there's this whole good old boy mentality thing that's happening in this tiny town that has this store in it, and it's in Utah, and so they're kind of like sticking together, and they made life hell for this YouTuber. And this YouTuber, don't get me wrong, like he likes to cause some chaos, but in an activist, you've really done people wrong kind of way. So it's like, it's giddy to watch and, see him fuck with them as much as possible, because this store literally stole, $200,000 worth of Legos from this elderly man. And the elderly man's son was working with the previous owners of the store to have the Legos sold there. And he retains ownership of them until they sell, but they're being housed at the store. The store changes ownership kind of right in the middle of all this, because it's it's a long process to get rid of that many Legos.
Right.
This new store owners are like, well, that agreement wasn't with us. Your fucking Legos aren't here. Like, fuck off. And he's like, what? This is like our life savings. What are you talking about? And then chaos ensues, and it becomes this crazy complex story, like you were just talking about with Delphi. Like after, like, convictions haven't even happened, but the bricks and minifigs are basically thieves, and they live in Utah, and they've got the cops under their belt, which seems really weird, but it's just because they're all these weird Utah Mormons that are all friends, and they're like, fuck this guy. And so Reckless Ben from YouTube, he's like this, this guy, this Avenger that goes out and tries to help people with stuff like this. And he took it head on, and surely the stuff he was doing, which is pretty wild, but the stuff he was doing, they would make them give it back. But no, the other guys were doubling down. The Lego people were doubling down. It's crazy, but it's a crazy story, and you would love it.
I'll check it out. Yeah, I've heard like it tangentially, but I haven't really dug too deep. I will after the show. Yeah, for sure. That's crazy. Lego is a strange underworld.
It really is.
I have a friend who's deep into it, Zach Farr, and and then I see it pop up in the news, and it's like, it's never a good thing either. It's always like some like tens of thousands of dollars worth of Legos like stolen from these different places, and there's like smuggling rings and shit. It's like, what the fuck is going on with Lego, dude? It's like, it's like its own sort of weird underground currency.
It really is. It really is. My brother-in-law is really into it, and he's like, yeah, it's better than gold. I'm buying Legos. Fuck gold. I'm like, okay.
That might be true, because I did buy something once, and then I just never got around to doing it. And then I was like, I looked it up later, and I'm like, holy shit, that thing went up like triple in costs.
Oh wow!
It's like, I'm like, fuck, I gotta that's like kind of like what you're saying. I'm like, maybe I should just start buying fucking shitload of Lego sets and then like flipping them like 2 years later to just make a tiny little profit.
Yeah.
Now you just got the book out. And so, are you there?
Yeah, right here.
All right. I'm losing sound. So
check.
Yeah, we're good. Let's do the what's next for you. You just got the book out. You got some events coming up. Tell me about it.
Sure. I've got events coming up for the rest of the summer. Like we said before, we alluded to before, we're doing something on the 11th at the Crypto Museum. It's the grand opening up in Bangor. So a bunch of us are going up, and some are sharing some stories, and there'll be vendors. Should be fun. And Lauren Coleman's birthday is that weekend too, so there's a celebration of that. The following weekend, I'm at a place called Labyrinthia in Ripley, and it's this really old farmhouse. It's really amazing, and it's now a place that it's like a tourist attraction now where people go and visit, and there's a maze to walk and a great haunted farmhouse. And 15 years ago, I investigated it on a paranormal investigation, stayed in touch with the owner, and he has since turned it into this. And he's like, hey, I love your UFO books. Why don't you come and tell some stories and sell some books? So that's what I'm doing on the 18th. And then the rest of the summer, I'm going to different libraries and all this good stuff, sharing stories and trying to get the book out there into people's hands. And what's next? Right now, I wrote another horror fiction book. I had one come out in 2021 called We Only Come Out at Night. And it's just these really short horror fiction stories. And I wrote a new one, or I'm in the process of writing the new one, and I want it to come out next year. And it's called Darkness Knows Our Names. And yeah, it's another short horror fiction, but this one is inspired by true stories. And
nice.
A lot of them are based on stuff that happened to me and my girlfriend, but they turn into these wild stories that are very much fictional.
Nice. All right. I got to look for that. All right. Well, forgive me. I'm going to kind of rush you through here at the end because I only got the one ear. And now I'm like, all right, well, I'm walking on a tightrope because I can't look at it gives me no fucking indication of how much space is left, how much battery. So, well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show, Nomar. I've had an absolute blast. I feel like you're going to be back, I hope, if you'll come back, because I feel like we can talk for a long, long time about all kinds of crazy stuff. I'm really looking forward to seeing you this coming weekend because I'm probably chew your ear off over the course of several hours just sharing crazy stories and everything. The new book is In the Pines, True Stories of Mystery, Mayhem, and Monsters in Maine. And I want to stress again how much I really respect and appreciate that you're coming up or unearthing these sort of contemporaneous stories. It's great to see some sort of fresh insights and material out there. Very often, you read these stories and everything seems to cut off like in the 90s or maybe the early 2000s. There's stuff in here from like very, very recently, and it's like, oh shit, this is crazy. Like we were talking about the lighthouse. So I really enjoyed the book. I had an absolute blast reading it, and I'm gonna probably dig up some of your previous books to check out now that since I enjoyed this one so much. And folks can find out more from you allmylinks.com/Slevik, SLEVIK. Nomar Slevik, thank you so much for coming on the show, brother.
Yeah, thanks so much. I had a great time. Let's do it again.
Absolutely.